All right, so what we're doing a little track guide training course for
Yeah, he's
Imola
okay. There we go.
for Sim Race Alliance. We're going to be running their our pro and amateur races on Tuesday and Wednesday night next week. So Imola's a good track for me. And thanks for the follow. And then it's gonna give him a few tips
Damn, bro, you got ads? Not
and
cool.
yeah. Oops, you got ads popping up. You gotta wait for the ads to go through. I even got the ads turned off, so I can't even control it. Twitch got to get their money, right?
Yeah, some bullshit.
All right.
What? Oh, it's Taco Bell.
Taco Bell, love it.
Oh shit, bro. $5 bill breakfast box? That looks good.
I think we go right by. You guys all hear me okay through the stream?
Yep.
All right, cool. All right, so what I'm gonna do first is
You?
what I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
you're
play a
fine.
yeah I'm gonna
Good.
play a couple laps through from my perspective. I did a few laps last night, got the setup halfway decent, and just let you watch that to start, and then we'll go through it kind of turn by turn on one of the laps, and I'll give you all the little secrets I can possibly come up with. So go from there. Put the HUD up so you guys can see where I'm giving it the gas and the brake. So we'll just let it go for a couple laps. Um, give you guys a little background on me. I've been sim racing since sim racing on computers has existed. So building like my own computer back in probably the early 90s. Raced like the original IndyCar 500 simulation. Um, also, from there, took part in the first online racing with. Actually, we started like with IndyCar and MicroPro's Formula One, doing where you submit your hot lap replays, and that's how you had races then. And then it became live with the NASCAR Papyrus Hawaii, which really didn't work right, and then became the real deal with Grand Prix Legends, probably back in like 1998 and 99, and from there. So I've been sim racing for over 20 years. I took a little break for about 3 years from sim racing altogether when I was running ACC, original Assetto Corsa, and now I fell back in love with ACC. Best sim out there by far. From there, this track in particular is translated really well. I've always done good here. It's suited my driving style, and then going straight to here from other simulations, it was easy translation for me. So we're just gonna run a couple laps through. Yeah, we'll run next lap. So if you guys can just kind of eyeball it up. This is my normal perspective, but I also understand that you guys will see things from a different perspective depending on where your seating position is, or however your field of view is and all that. So we'll go over, brake points and how to take corners, and ultimately we'll go over some setup tips for this track too. So and driving style tips is the main thing I'm going to talk about, because how you enter some of these corners is really important. There's a couple key spots on this track, and we'll kind of talk about them now as you guys kind of watch through. First, coming down here, what they call Aqua Mineralde. This is a high risk, low reward type corner here. We want to kind of coast in here, but the important part is getting power down here and powering straight out to the outside curb. And we'll review that kind of in slow motion once we go through. This is another key corner here as well, and this is where you can gain and lose a lot of time, and that's the Valiante chicane, or whatever you want to call it. I think it's the second chicane. And then we'll talk about where I think the key spot is on this track, and that's I think that's the Villeneuve turn. Probably should bring a track map up, huh? I wonder if I can do that. No, I can't do it on a replay. So if you notice each lap I do, they're not exactly the same, but the lap times are going to be the same here for like 3 straight laps. But I've made mistakes here and there. Haven't been exactly perfect on some of my entries, but I'm able to make up for it on how I exit the corner. Let's watch one more lap. And while this is running, you guys have any comments or questions until we get into the main gist of it?
Is your setup very pointy on entry, like with the brake pedal?
It's I would say it's more on the pointy side. We can talk about setups here. I think this is one track where you can compromise grip for speed, as far as trimming the rear wing out, because there's really aero corners won't hurt you here. It's all about handling the bumps and the attitude of the car as you hit the bumps and maximizing your time. It's really a power track. It's a speed track. Aero has very little to do with your lap times here, which kind of makes all the cars potentially equally good at this track, in my opinion, especially if you can get the right attitude of the car over the bumps. Because I don't really necessarily think in ACC you can drive the track a little bit differently, say like in a Bentley or a Mercedes here. You can attack the curbs a little bit more, but I don't think it's that big a deal. Even this car does not take the curbs that well, but I've found after just a little bit of adjustments that it's just as fast and easy to drive as the Merc was for me here. All right, this is a pretty good lap, so we'll go back on this lap and we'll kind of break it down. I'll go into a trail view here, and we'll kind of break it down, kind of at half speed, kind of. All right, so we'll talk about lines and then braking points. So this corner, starting off the lap here, you can take a little bit of the green here. You can't take a lot. There is a track cut here if you hug that, but you want to small this up. There's no reason to go all the way to the outside of the track here. You want to take a straight line through here and aim directly for this inside curb, and just let the car naturally flow out to the edge of the track here. Okay, I'll try to slow this down a little bit. So this is not a critical brake zone, but you need to have a hard brake marker here for sure. There's not much to gain by late braking here. Maybe in qualifying you might want to push the limit, but this is more about how you balance the car coming off these curbs as we come through. You can nip some of this curve. Now I talk about attitude of the car. If you flick the car in hard, you can take some of these sausage curbs and it won't upset the car. But if you take these sausage curbs straight on, you're going to have problems. So I'm just barely missing those. But here's the key part right here. This is the most important part. Being able to put the power down hard here. We can kind of back it up real quick. You kind of can look at the throttle bar and the brake bar. I'm releasing the brake, a little bit of a trail brake, a slow release to help the nose come in, and also lifts up the inside front tire. Same here. I'm going to bank it back in. If I get you a little bit of these curves, it's not a big deal. And then we're already hard on the power right at the apex of that curve there. Now coming in the next corner, this is all about being smooth. You can nip a little bit of this inside. If you set up right here, you're not burning too much speed. And this outside curb, you want to let the car have its head. But if you can stay off that curb, that's a couple hundredths, to be honest with you. But you don't want to fight the car to stay off the curb. But in my opinion, if you can stay off the curb, you're nice and clean there, you're picking up speed here. This next set of turns, I think, are the most important for lap speed here at this track. I'll pause this real quick. This is the corner where you want to ignore all this dark stuff here. And you want to pick up your brake marker. I pick up a little bit here peripheral, but I'm kind of looking here at where I would be turning in at high speed. And I approach this corner the same way I've done in every other simulation I've done. It's a high-speed coast-in for me. And even if your car, if you can't get up to 5th gear, I'd recommend a short shift. and then a downshift on a light brake. As you coast in hard here, we'll go in quarter speed. Now I'm just coasting in. I downshift to the fourth. I'm off the brake. I'm coasting in, and I'm trying to get this car attitude right. Set up. Now I'm braking down third, the second, and this is critical here. You carried so much speed in that short shoot, and then you set yourself up for a good exit here, and you're hard on the power. You on this one I go a little too wide. I think you want to stay on the red. That cost me maybe a couple hundredths because it's really rough on the car. And then you're powering down here to the 180, the hairpin here. You want to set up wide. I'll show you. We'll go back through quick, and I'll show you where my brake zones are from the cockpit. You guys might have a little bit different perspectives, but you got to have a hard. This is a hard late brake, trail brake. You want to come in with kind of a late apex, but you got to make sure you hug here and power out with little minimal steering inputs as you come out. And you don't want to take a whole lot of this curb either. Let's see how much I took here. Little bit. You get up in here, you're costing yourself time. And here's back to the natural line, is back to left, which doesn't seem to make sense. But even watching the race on the opening race of the actual World Championship, they do this. And if you drive over here, you'll hear all the dirt. So I just take the natural line. It might not be quicker to take the correct line or not. But here you kind of, when you're in the cockpit, you see there's a little bit of camber here, and it's just really smooth. You come in from the outside, you hardly have to turn the wheel. This is another corner that you can get yourself in trouble. It's not a corner you can make a ton of time, but you can get your track cut here. So I normally coast in. It's kind of a low revving third gear for me. I normally just want to, I'm a little late on the apex here on this one. I really am. I wanted to be just a touch tighter. You just want to get a little bit of this curb, not too much. You're out here, you get a cut, and then down into Aqua Mineralde. I kind of do the same thing here. I could hold fourth, but I go up to fifth to help me get that rhythm of a downshift. And this is kind of a one hard, sharp brake. I go up to fifth here, and then I'm going to go back down to fourth, and then it's all about setting the car up correctly here. Exit of this corner can be really rough on some cars. Some cars you can use some of this to help set you up. Other cars, it's pretty rough, and you don't want to go too far because you get on that stuff, you're going to be hopping right into the hopefully you guys can see my mouse, right into the dirt out here. All right, so you want to set yourself up wide here. You want to bank it in. I'm kind of cutting this one in a little bit because I got a lot of front grip in this car the way I have it set up. And then this is key here to power out. You don't want to go past that little drainage there like it shows. But this is a thing I see a lot of guys, I'm going to back it up real quick. This is the thing I see a lot of guys doing at this turn. They're fighting to get it back to the inside like they're driving a chicane. Let the car have its head. Hard on the throttle here. You'll see the throttle. Pick up, boom. I'm hard on the throttle. Full throttle right here, but I'm not fighting the car. I'm going to let it go straight, and I'm not letting the traction control kick in here. So I'm fighting it straight out to this curb. You can see where the natural line is here to the curb, and this is where all the grip is too. Now I'm coming back. Now this is another key spot, is the upcoming chicane here. Now for me in my cockpit, we can go back to it, and I'll go through it again real quick. I brake right about when I hit this, boom, right when I hit the white line here. Now some cars you can probably take this in second, but it's more about first. And this is a key corner where I know I'm making ground up on a lot of guys when I'm racing them here. Now this is about, it looks like you could take this you can almost straight line the chicane, that it would be faster. But you want to work on the attitude of the car here, because these curves are so rough. I mean, even in a Bentley, you can get caught out really bad. So if I'm coming in hard, I'm flicking the car hard to wrap around this curve and lift this right side of the car up as I go over this curb here. I'm gonna cut it in hard. Look how much curb I'm taking, but I'm fine because I'm lifting that side of the car up. And the same on this side. Bang, I'm hard turning the car. I'm changing the attitude of the car left and right, left and right. And then this curb on exit, you want to be hard on the power right away. You don't want to get too far out there because it's way too rough. And you definitely don't want to hit those yellow sausage curbs, or you're going to be in big trouble. But yeah, you're flicking it in hard here, taking a ton of that curb, and you're going to take a ton of this curb. But you got to flick it in. If you try to just go straight over it, you're going to be looking up at the stars. And then you want to power out. I'm already hard on the power. Down through here, and then we can skip ahead just a little bit. Okay, so as I come out of there, I'm hugging this inside line, and then I don't have a solid braking point for here. I feel when the car is straightening up, and you see the blackness on the ground, which helps with when you're on a green track, you don't have that. But I just wait till the car is nice and straightened up, and you don't have to super late brake here. It's more about exit at Ravazza here, these two corners. So I'm braking down to second gear. I take these both at second. I see some guys take them in first. Maybe the Ferrari, you might want to take it in first, but any other car, no. So I'm hard on the throttle, back out. And you can use a lot of this exit curb. It's pretty smooth. And you just don't want to get up and get in the dirt, of course. And then same thing here. Most cars, you can actually take these sausages if you have the right attitude of the car. I miss them here on this car, but I was in the Merc, I'd drive right over them. No problem. And you don't want a ton of this exit curb, and that's as far as you want to go right there. You don't want to get on that part. And then we're back, and that's a complete lap. So I'm going to go back into the car and to show you real quick some of my brake markers. Oops, went way too far. All right, so we're setting up. We're going on the straight line. We're not doing hardly any inputs here. I'm just slightly turning the wheel, just slightly. And then I'm looking for my brake points that are, you already have the orange marker up here up front. That's a guide. You're not going to brake there, of course. You have the access road. You have these two white markers. So I kind of, as soon as this access road pops out of my vision, and when we're racing at night, you're just going to pick it up. It's not going to have much time, but you're going to see it. As soon as that pops out of my vision, I'm focused on the outside curbing going here into turn one. So I'm about to pass the access road, and then boom, I'm gradually applying the brakes here. And I'm full brake, and you'll see me kind of trail brake it a little bit. All right. I don't totally come off the brakes instantly. And that's when I'm using up the curbs here. And going back to what I talked before, you can get in through here a lot faster. But right at this point is the key moment. If you're not in a position to go full throttle without, sliding the car around too much, you've hurt yourself. So it's an easy corner if you drive at 9/10, and you're going to go up. You're going to be faster 9/10 out of that corner. Pretty much every time. All right, brake point on here, I think we talked about. I drive well into the dark. I look for this to kind of come out of my periphery, and there's some white stuff on the outside curb. But I use these two, and right as soon as that's coming out of my periphery, I'm braking and turning in. And it's a quick downshift and kind of a coast. I want to use up a lot of that curb, but too much can get you in trouble if you really center line those sausage curbs. And this is another key point. Hard on the throttle, as quick as you can, out of that corner, and use that. You don't want to use up too much of this curb. If you got to, you got to. Right? And then down to the braking now on the braking for the hairpin. Right here, I'm watching this. I'm looking at this. As soon as that gets about here, I'm braking. Boom. And it's kind of, if you can kind of late apex it a bit and hold it tighter. I think I go in it's a little bit too wide. You don't want to get on the inside curb, but you want to get as close as you can. And you see me straighten up the wheel here. Give it a little correction. Now I'm hard on the throttle. I'm kind of letting the car have its head. I don't want too much of this curb. I don't know if it shows the traction control kicking in. That's a key. That's your only, this and the exit of Aqua Mineraldi are your only two real traction corners on the track. As we come up to this tall turn here, I watch this. I know as soon as that passes out my vision, I'm hard on the brakes. Downshift once, and then it's kind of a coast balance here. Now, some of you guys, if you right foot, left foot brake, you can do some of the rally stuff, especially going back. I'm sorry, I'm going to do this to you real quick. I'm going to see if I do this at the key corner. I think the key corner of the whole track is this corner. Let's see if I do a little bit of rallying, a little bit of throttle and brake to kind of balance the car in the middle. No, I do not get back on the brake at all. Oh, I do a little bit. Okay, a little bit of throttle and brake at the same time, because that's a key corner where it's gonna feel awkward and the car's going to unload, but you need to keep it tight. And if the car's getting a little too unload, you can give it a tiny bit of gas. You got a little bit of gray zone to work as you're coasting in that area. Then you're hard on the brakes down the second. Okay, so we're going back up here, back up to the top corner. We're taking third gear. We watch the 50 marker come right out of the vision, and then we're back hard on the throttle. I'm easing in the throttle because I know I'm sliding a little wide. I missed the apex a touch there, but I made it back up by coming out here nice and clean. And then we're coming down to Aqua Mineralde here. We talked before. Ultimately for ultimate speed, I shouldn't probably do this upshift, but it helps me for timing and stability. So I make this short upshift to fifth. I'm looking at the corner. I want to clip this apex just a little bit. I'm back down to fourth. Oh, this is the wrong lap. This is the lap I messed up. I actually ran wide there. Hold on. Let's go back. Right about here. All right. So the next lap I messed up. I actually got a cut there at the top of the hill. And I was like, screw it, as I came down here. Anyway, so we're fifth. Real quick. And then we're back down to fourth. Clipping a little bit of that curve. We're in a tiny bit of a coast. And then we're trying to get the car stable for the proper turn in to nip some of this inside curb and power out as fast as we can, right? Boom. Full on the throttle. We don't want to get past this little grade area, and we're letting the car kind of go as straight as we can out to the edge of this track. Because if we try to cut it tight, we're going to break the rears loose and cause us, lose us time. All right, and then we're coming up here. We actually can go. And then this corner, I'm not really even looking at, these are just kind of a peripheral reference, but I'm looking for this. This is where I'm looking to brake. Bang. Qualifying, I will brake a little bit later. And here we'll look at the steering inputs. As I come in, I'm cranking the wheel. I'm trying to raise this side of the car up a little bit, take the load off it. And as I come back, I'm doing the same. Boom. Take the load off it, and then I'm trying to power down without taking too much curb and getting the car straight as I can. And then we're on our way. Hug the inside line here. Going back here, I really don't have a brake reference. You probably shouldn't use that curb. I don't think it really slows you down, but it just helps me a little bit. And then, boom, I get the car nice and straight. I'm braking in. There's some play here. It's more about the exit of both of these corners. If you go in deep and then you compromise, you really slow yourself down. So this is too much risk for too little reward if you brake in deep here. Kind of got a little too much curve, to be honest. And then this is all about setting up just a touch of the brake, just a tiny touch of the brake. And you're kind of coasting, and then you're bang on the power right there. Trying to take it to the edge of this curb. Not to this rumble part, you want to be right on that part. And then that's pretty much the whole lap right there. All right. You guys got any questions on anything? Hopefully my stream's nice and... I'm actually processing video from...
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I think what was like it's pretty clear in like turns 5 and 6 is more a driving style related question rather than a track specific question. But like, I mean, you're riding the brake and throttle at the same time a lot. Is that just to kind of keep the pitch of the car more stable?
Yeah.
And then does that probably burns the brakes a bit more? But I guess in a sprint race, it's not a big deal.
I think some of what you're seeing on here, it gives you some throttle on the downshifts. It blips for you. So,
Right.
that might be some of it, but I do a little bit of that kind of in that one turn. I do a little bit of that kind of rally style where I'm riding the brakes. And another thing I do, which is probably not the best thing to do, but if I like notice I'm braking a little too early for a corner, I'll give a little stab of throttle, try to get my rhythm and pace back up for that entry. If I'm, I often do that, especially in races where I'm braking a little bit too early, and then I'll ride a little tiny bit of throttle right before entry to get the speed back up where it should be. so I have the right apex speed and can power off to where I'm used to, driving. But I think this is the key corner that guys don't quite get. That you can carry all the speed in here. You can keep carrying it. I guarantee a lot of the guys are in the 160s and 150s right here, and you're just wasting all this free straightaway here where you can have a lot of speed. And then the key, of course, is powering off of this corner. It's a short straight. If you mess it up, it's not going to totally kill you. You can make it back up, but this is a place you can make a pass too. So if a guy messes that part up, get a good run with a nice gap, you can shoot up the inside or even pass him on the outside here. Any other questions?
Yeah, I like the hairpin for passing.
Yeah, it's probably one of the best ones. Yeah, for sure. Talk about setups. Go back to setups. I think I should log in the server. I know with the Merc I ran like a 7 wing. I think it goes up to 12 for when we raced here last season. But I don't put a ton into like the ride height with this sim. Trying to get over the bumps. I think it's more about the attitude of the car and how you set it up. So, opposed to how high you set the car up. And also, if you take wing out of the car, it takes a lot of stress off the shocks and the springs when you're hitting the bumps. It kind of allows you to go over some of these bumps a lot smoother if you don't have max downforce in the car. So, definitely. So we're set up right here. But I'll go back to live chat here. Put this. So you guys can go ahead and mute the stream, and I can talk to you guys in real time a little quicker if you got any questions.
I love this track tonight.
What time should we?
What time should we be looking for?
I mean, I think race pace for the pros for an hour race, and if you're taking full load of fuel, you're probably looking. The pros are going to probably be low 43s. I'm going to think race pace is going to be roughly in there as a low 43s to low 44s in the pro race, and maybe bump it up a second for the amateur race.
So that's race pace, but what do you think for qualifying? Like, what do you think around the fast times are normally here?
I've done 41s. I think for the actual qualifying for this race, when we ran it before the last patch in the Merc, I did like a 42.2 or 42.3, something like that for qualifying, and that was a pole. So I'd say low 42s to high 41s for pro class, and then probably second up for the amateur class. Another tip I would like to pass on to you guys, I do pretty much all of my practice with half fuel loads for what I expect to run the race, because that gives you the best balance of making a good setup that you're going to run the race. So if I'm not going to change tires, I'm going to run in the Lambo, it's going to be around 110 liters. So I run 60 liters to practice with. Like the laps I showed you on the replay, I think I was at 30 or 40 liters. Just because I was just trying to get the setup so I could show you guys a few laps. But generally I'll practice like 50 to 60 liter range and make runs that way for balancing the car. And then from there it's a matter of just taking fuel out and maybe even clipping a little wing and a little ride height out for qualifying. That's what I do. It might not be the right thing. I know a lot of guys use practice. So they practice the hot lap mode, which will help you learn to get the most speed you can out of the car. But I just don't do it that way, and I can see how that could be good for a lot of people too. But I just like to replicate race pace and then do my best for qualifying.
What setup tips do you have if the rear is bouncing over curbs?
Now here I'll show you. We'll just go to the setup. Look on. This is the biggest thing I found with the car. Is the wheel rates, more importantly the bump stop range, and the Actually, I'll load the setup I've been working on here. There. So, there's a little delay on your screen for if you're looking at the stream still, but bump stop rate is important on the bounciness of the car. I lower them quite a bit. Now, the lower you can go with the rear, the more grip you can get with the rear, in my opinion. So, like, I think I was running these at like 1100 at Misano because that's kind of like a flat, track where you don't want that much movement in the car. But here, I'm running it pretty soft, but I'm limiting the range a little bit, especially in the rear. That might help you a lot, limiting the range and lowering the bump stop rate. Will help the bounciness in the rear. As far as the dampers go, understanding the dampers, bear in mind I'm still kind of a rookie at this simulation and how these, I know how all this stuff works, but how does it translate in the simulation is important. Now your regular bump ranges are directional changes of the car, left and right. The inputs you're making, braking, turning left, right, are your regular bump and rebound. Then your fast bump and fast rebound is actually how the car is taking the bumps on the track, disregarding the attitude of the car. So if you're going straight down the track and you hit a bump, the fast bump, fast rebounds, how the car reacts. If you're turning the car and it's changing the center of gravity left, right, forward, and back under braking, these come into play a lot more. Now, you generally always want a little bit more rebound than you do bump, but, oops, changed it. But this is the stuff I've come up with. I took a setup, actually was a Coach Dave setup, and I reduced the fast bump or the fast rebound and the slow rebound a little bit, and it helped me through that chicane the best because the car wasn't so bouncy, and I also, of course, reduced my bump stop rate and range. Now you can offset some of that. When you reduce this bump stop rate, you generally have to increase your range a little bit, but you can offset that by adding more spring so the car doesn't move as much. You don't want to get to the point where the car is running out of spring range, basically. So that's very important. If you're gonna smash it against the bump stops, the car is gonna lose all its ability to hold the bumps.
So, to decrease bumps, decrease rate and increase range.
Generally speaking, yes. But like I said, especially at the rear, if you're having a lot of problem with the rear end bouncing around, you might want to look at just first thing reducing the range. Kind of limit that range a little bit. And then as low as you can go on this number, for me, I don't know if I'm necessarily doing this the right way for a mid-engine car, but it helped me a ton with the Merc. Lowering the bump stop rate in the rear helped me get grip to the track. And that's where you lose a lot of your time is with, you don't want that traction control engaging. Anytime you can keep that from engaging, you can go faster. Like, I'm gonna admit I'm not the setup guru yet with this, but I'm starting to get the hang of it, and there's this is the place I found the grip the most, the fine tune a little bit. If I feel something in the car, that's when I go to the dampers. And the other big thing I've liked with most cars is increasing caster. And what caster does, it basically increases the camber, especially for the offset wheel. If you could imagine what caster is, if you can imagine a motorcycle's forks go like this, and you go to a chopper, you're adding more caster, and as the wheel turns, it flops over more. You ever see like a chopper on the road, the wheel will flop over. Not just going to turn, it's going to flop over because you've laid the forks down more. And that's basically what caster is, and it helps you get more grip, and especially high-speed corners. And but you'll notice it in your you can really notice it in your force feedback. This force feedback becomes a lot stronger the more caster you add to the car. But the downside of caster is directional changes. So you're flopping that wheel over. You have to go from left to right or right to left. It makes the car more unstable, but it helps you with overall front grip if you're struggling there. I think arrow, yeah, I had the arrow kind of up here. I was going to try to start reducing it. And then going to the aero. As you see, I didn't raise the car up much, and I had 30, 40 liters on the tank, and it still was okay over the curbs. And then the most important part of that is the rake. Of course, the higher you raise the rear, the more front downforce you get. And you get to the point on the rear where you lose the diffuser effectiveness, the higher you bring that angle up at the rear end. So, but that helps you turn, but it'll make you loose. So you got to balance that, put the right. And each car's different. You know what's best for it. And that's another thing to always kind of tinker one click at a time. You need a little bit more overall downforce in the nose. You start bringing up the rear ride height and lowering the front. And you'll see that here on the, as I raise the rear, I'm going past the normal threshold, and it gives you the base percentage differences. Now, in the certain cars, like the Merc I know well, it changes drastically on fuel load from when you first load the car, your rear end's on a full tank of fuel, your rear end's way up in the air, and as it burns off, the rear end drops. So you go from it's crazy, scary oversteer to understeer by the end of a full stint, like an hour stint in the car. So when I ran this race in the Merc last season, especially through Aqua Minerality, it was absolute nightmare. I was just holding on for dear life for the first few laps, and then it got better and better and better to the point where it got kind of pushy towards the end. But some cars are pretty neutral. The thing I like the best about the Lambo is that it's the most balanced car front to rear with fuel load during a stint. So that's the positive of this car so far, for sure.
What was your air balance? I'm not looking at the stream, so I don't know.
It's at 3.5% plus.
Good lord. I guess I just did your the bump stop
Yep.
and all that, and it did exactly what I needed it to do, but now it's doing too much, so I think I'm gonna try to fix it with the arrow.
Yep.
So, because I think I'm at like -2.
Yeah, and that's
That
going
was
to
a bit triggering.
depend on the car, too. What car are you driving?
The new Audi.
Okay. Now, the new Audi, I mean, I spent some good time racing the new Audi because we're running it in a endurance series with another group. Great car with aero, great with brakes, great with bumps, but where you're losing out is top speed, and you're really losing out on grip at the rear tires. That's where you're going to lose the time on that new Audi. So that thing I talked about, lowering that rate, will help you at a lot of tracks to try to get that grip down. And then you also want to work with the rear camber too, some on that too. That'll help with the rear grip. Thanks for all the follows, guys. Appreciate it.
Let's see how much I can push this arrow.
Yeah, with the Audi, you might want to take a lot of rear wing out at this track.
I have 4 right now, but I have a shit ton of rake.
Okay.
So, I'm gonna try 3 and then drop the rake down to like 64, 65.
Roger.
I don't know, because I don't know how low the spring rate is. I don't want it to stall it out on the straights at high speed.
All right. We have any other questions? All right. Maybe I should do some laps on there. Oh.
Like turning markers or where to aim the car for the last chicane?
The last chicane, and it's going to depend on your perspective, and each car is just a tiny bit different for me, but from my normal driving perspective, it's right about the point where that curb comes, where I don't have any more black between the curb and the nose of my car. That's where I'm hard on the brakes. And I think that corner does not reward late braking as much as it does precision of attacking that first curb to set your car up to attack the second curb so you can get a good launch out. So I wouldn't be a huge focus of braking late there, but you want to have a solid brake point where you can go in there and drive it in hard, but still have control of the car where you can turn the nose in and attack that curb and change the attitude of the car to lift over that curb and then back the other direction.
All right, cool. I don't know if this makes sense, but do you brake and then sort of turn in like a right angle style, or just like a smooth steering into the corner.
From my perspective, I'm turning in from a right angle style, but when I watch my own replay, I am kind of turning in a little bit, but then I'm turning in hard because the visual gives you, hey, I just want to just a gentle bump off this curb because it's almost straight and a bump off the other curb, but I'm cranking it hard right before the curb so I can change the attitude of the car to lift the inside of the car into the air a little, as much as I can, so I can attack that curb without it basically shoot me in the air, if that makes sense. And it works in this simulation with these low to the ground, high downforce GT3 cars. Doesn't matter how much you raise them up to some degree. It's more important the attitude of the car as you hit some these type of curbs.
All right, cool. Thanks. I'll give that a try.
Hi, Henry. Hi, buddy. Mommy home? Want some treats? Sit. That's a good boy. Want some treats? All right. Yes.
So, for the hairpin after the second chicane, do you do that in second or first? Because I've always been running it in second. I didn't know if it was slow enough in first, or if I can run it in second and still be quicker.
I can do it in second if I do it just perfect, and that would be something I might try like on a pure qualifying run. I think I maybe can shave a little bit off, but getting down to first allows you more stability in the car and to more regularly power off. Which car are you in?
The Aston, the V8.
The V8 Aston. I'd probably go down to first
Okay.
on a regular basis there. That way you can attack the curb and then jump hard on the throttle and not worry about the car will be more responsive. Are you noticing that you're often sliding out wide coming out of there onto the rumble strips, or are you able to do it in second and keep it pretty comfortable?
I've noticed that in second, whenever I'm coming out of there, I'm not sliding around, I just feel really sluggish.
Yeah.
Get the power down at all, so it's just like fighting to get speed.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. That the Aston's a poor acceleration car, so that's probably the biggest weakness of that particular car is the acceleration. I would work on it in first gear, and then if you feel comfortable in second, and just compare that performance delta to see if you're improving or not.